Notre Dame and Duke. This was a defensive game. It felt like it was going to go much the same way that last week did for Notre Dame and Ohio State. And yet Notre Dame's able to drive the length of the field, convert a 4th and 17 when Sam Hartman took off. They're able to get in the end zone. Audric Estime wins the ball game. Riley Leonard goes down on the final play with a nasty-looking ankle injury. Kind of diagnose this game. What'd you like from Notre Dame, and did you feel like Duke gave this one away?
I don't know that Duke gave it away as much as Notre Dame just came out and took it, and they did exactly what happened to them in reverse last week up in Columbus, Ohio. Garrett and I highlighted one of the things that made Ohio State stay on top in that game was they prevented the big one from Audric Estime. They still allowed 5 yards of carry for Audric Estime, but they didn't allow him to get the backbreaker that really sunk the team. So listen, I am really impressed with both of these teams. I think we coming in knew this was going to be a really fun defensive struggle. I expected a few more points to be put up by both of these offenses, but both of these defenses are so good. It's hard to blame the offenses for struggling at times, but 2 turnovers from Duke, the backbreaker at the end from Estime. That's kind of exactly what we highlighted on the preview show. If you look back to what we were saying on Wednesday, that the quarterback that made the fewer mistakes was going to win the game. And if Duke's able to, if Riley Leonard's able to be that quarterback and they're able to prevent Audric Estime from getting the big one, they'll win the football game. But unfortunately for Duke, neither of those things were true. So kudos to Notre Dame, big environment. That crowd was jacked up. It's the biggest game in the history of the Duke football program, the biggest home game, I'm sure. And they go into a hostile environment and get the job done. That's what championship caliber teams do. So hats off to Duke for competing. Bigger hats off to Notre Dame for getting it done and, finishing that game strong.
The rushing yards very, very, very close in this one. Duke actually outrushes Notre Dame 189 to 159. Riley Leonard did a tremendous part of that on the ground. I tweeted in that fourth quarter, it felt like every play was just Riley Leonard running with his legs, a QB draw, because they couldn't pass. Duke had nothing going through the air. I feel like this game came down to the 4th and 6 with just 3 minutes left in the ball game. Duke has a chance to ice it away, either to kick the field goal or convert the first down and keep the drive alive. And instead, they back Riley Leonard up to pooch punt it. Now, it was all on the defense at that point. And listen, your defense has been great all game. I don't necessarily hate the call, but in retrospect, not taking control of that game yourself maybe looks like a little bit of a misstep. Garrett, what do you think Duke will regret more? Not going for it on 4th and 6 or not spying Sam Hartman, allowing him to run for a 4th and 17 late in that game?
I think it's going to be not going for it. My entire take on that was you have to play to win the game when you're in these big spots. This is your chance to beat a second top team of the year, put yourself, kind of in control of your own destiny, really make a statement in front of the whole nation, and you decide to let Notre Dame make the play, right? Nobody's going to blame you for not spying Sam Hartman. Nobody thinks that he's necessarily a dual threat freak or, oh, you got to have a spy or, especially on what was it, 4th and 16? I mean, you're not thinking that the quarterback's going to pick this thing up. You're thinking that this is going to be something you got to drop coverage. So I don't want to, armchair quarterback the coverage that they run there. I don't want to armchair quarterback the defense they roll out in. However, I do think that you have to think about the going for it, right? You have to think about, do you go for it? You can run the football. That's kind of what you build your offense around. Do you want to trust that, or do you want to say, hey, let's just give that guy a chance and do that? I think you have to put the ball in your own hands, give yourself a chance to win. And they're going to be rethinking that one a little bit. I don't think that's fair, but you do have to probably rethink it a little bit at this point.
Listen, Duke was not supposed to be in this position, right? Nobody expected them to be undefeated coming into today's ball game, or at least not many people expected that. Not many people expected them to fully hang with Notre Dame, keep Sam Hartman in check, and have a chance to win this game. And yet that's where we found the Blue Devils late in the fourth quarter with the destiny in their hands. Florida State has showed some warts, right? On defense, they don't have a rushing attack. Clemson looked a little bit better, but I don't know that anyone is fully buying back Clemson stock. So if Riley Leonard is able to return, and we have no idea what his injury is right now. I haven't seen anything. If anyone on YouTube has, please drop that in the chat. Let us know. If Leonard's able to return, is Duke still considered an ACC frontrunner and a team that you can expect to see in the championship game, or was this a little bit of a reality check?
I think they're absolutely still a front runner. They're definitely in the top tier at the very least. I think Florida State's kind of in a tier by themselves. Maybe Miami would argue that right now, but I mean, they already beat Clemson. That's not a giant that they have to slay later in the year. You might say Clemson ends up being the better team, but I mean, they already beat Clemson, so it doesn't really matter, you know, when you're talking about who gets to go to the ACC championship game. So I think a couple other teams might have a reality check on them this weekend. Louisville was kind of fighting to be in that tier. They looked a little weak on Friday night with a tough NC State defense. NC State, speaking of, already has a couple of losses. Andrew in the chat says it is a reality check. I could see why you would say that. That is, you know, a very elite team, and it might be, you know, we're not talking about Duke as a college football playoff contender, and I think Notre Dame is definitely still in the college football playoff conversation. We're talking about the ACC title here. So for the last decade, the second team in the ACC title game has been nowhere near the college football playoff conversation. So I think, you know, that reality is still very much ahead of them. They have the games on the schedule that they can take care of business and get there. But, you know, any potential dark horse run to the college football playoff is probably over.
Yeah, I don't think this is as much of a reality check. It's a reality check for your offense, I think, that you have to be more effective across the board. You have to do a better job to, you know, get your offense rolling when you don't have everything going perfectly on the ground. But I don't think it's so much of a reality check for them in the ACC, right? In the ACC, I don't think there's that many great teams. I think obviously Florida State, and then it's a gap. And, you know, Trey, you said Miami, that could be an option. I know we're all, you know, Louisville looked okay. You know, NC State played well. There's certain teams that you can maybe see making a run. Clemson's still not out of it, I guess. But, you know, I think Duke still, you have to say that with the tiebreaker over Clemson, and with the fact that I think they're just playing better football, if Riley Leonard is able to play, I think that they're still in, not necessarily in, you know, the driver's seat or, you know, in full control, but they're definitely in contention for the ACC.
I'm really curious to see what happens with Riley Leonard. I mean, that guy is such a gamer. He's what college football represents. He's one of the best things about this sport. I will say Sam Hartman, good guy Sam, he waited for several minutes outside the Duke injury tent, waiting for Riley Leonard to come out. Now, he did come out on crutches, so whether that is, you know, a fracture, a sprain, a strain, we don't know. I'm not going to speculate on a college injury, but it is in all likelihood something that Duke is going to have to deal with, you know, going forward. And it was really cool to see Sam, a big win on the road, an escape. He should be celebrating with his team. Most quarterbacks would be celebrating with their team, and he's waiting outside the injury tent to talk with Riley and make sure he's okay. So really, really nice move by Sam, and Notre Dame escapes. Their postseason hopes certainly still alive.
Gracious him. How about that?